The National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, Nehawu, supports the calls for government to introduce the universal basic income grant. It says it is an important device to address the economic crises affecting youth and women in particular. For more, we're joined by Lwazi Nkolonzi, who speaks for Nehawu. Lwazi, good evening to you and welcome. You'd like to see the current limited social relief of distress grant used as the basis for being expanded into a universal income grant. Share with our viewers how you see it unfolding.
Good evening, Iman, and good evening to your viewers at home. As Nehawu, we are calling on government to make sure that the current SDR grant that's in place is made permanent and is converted into the universal basic income grant. And we are doing this, we are calling on the government precisely because we want the government to address in the main the economic and social crisis that is confronting women and the youth in this country. And how the government ought to do this. We are calling on the government to make proposals to the government. For example, increase the SDR, the current SDR now, to above poverty line of 650 rands, or make it 450. And in this way, you are going to be able to address the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality that's currently prevailing in society at the moment. So those are the issues that we are calling on government to look into in addressing the issue and making sure that the current grant, the SDR grant, is made permanent and is converted into the universal basic grant. I mean, we have seen what this current grant has done, Iman, in terms of the intervention that it has done since it was introduced in the midst of COVID-19, and how many households were able to benefit from this grant. So we are actually saying that this is a basis that government should actually use using this current SDR grant to permanently introduce and phasing in the universal basic income grant that we are calling for.
It's a difficult conversation to have, Lwazi, because when you are talking about the number of families, who rely on the SRD, we've seen from various civil society organizations just how life-saving, that injection into their budgets has been in terms of survival. How do you balance that, with the latest statistics that we see from the Department of Social Development, placing our dependency as a society, by and large, almost reaching to the 50% and beyond mark of people who are reliant on one type of grant in South Africa or the other? A lot of our effort needs to be directed into creating an environment that is favorable to job creation and getting people to work, because that is dignified and there's a sense of, we can plan for our future. Do you see that as part of one discussion, or must these be separate?
This forms part of the holistic discussions that society ought to take up. We cannot divorce the fact that South Africa remains one of the most unequal societies in the world, right? And this is evident with the high levels of unemployment, inequality, and poverty, and extreme poverty, by the way. And it's unexplainable that you can have a situation in the country whereby half of the population is unemployed, right? And this is a challenge and should be addressed as speedily as possible. The July riots demonstrated to us that our people are surviving under extreme conditions of inequality and poverty. Never mind the issue of the criminal elements that took place, but that demonstrated to us that our people are actually living in a sea of poverty, unemployment, and extreme inequality. And we ought to be engaging as society on how do we address these issues. And one of the interventions is to make sure that we put in place a mechanism such as the universal income grant to cushion our people whilst simultaneously addressing the issue of economic reconstruction to take place, whilst fixing entities that would create jobs.
Yeah.
But it can't be that we are going to say that our people are dependent on grants and we must not address those issues, right? We need to address those issues, but also we need to make sure that we we assist our people that are faced by these extreme conditions of poverty and unemployment.
Yeah.
And this grant will do that in the current moment, whilst we are saying that let us create jobs, let us fix the economy, and to make sure that we get our country in the right path that it ought to go, and create employment whilst we are also addressing the issues of poverty and inequality that face our people. So those are the discussions that should be had, and they should be holistically addressed like that, Iman.
Well, let's talk then about the fact that this is not a new call. In fact, it is a call that is underpinned by some research, done at least a decade ago, which led to a recommendation of the kind that you're asking for today. To share with our viewers the work of the Taylor Commission.
Look, you're quite correct. In 2002, the Taylor Commission recommended that there should be this introduction of the basic income grant. And we are quite disappointed as Nehawu that all these years that has not came to fruition, right? It's a decade later, and nothing has been done. It had to take the situation of COVID-19 to bring in the SDR grant, right? And it's unfortunate that it had to take such a catastrophic event for the grant to be introduced. And nonetheless, we welcome that intervention that was done by the government to introduce that SDR grant. So, but we are saying now, having looked and having assessed how much the grant has actually brought about relief to many households in the country, we are saying that this is a building block that the government ought to make this grant permanent and convert it into the universal basic income grant that we are looking for. And this is an opportunity now that the government has got before itself, that let them introduce this grant, let them introduce the basic income grant now, and it will address many socio-economic issues and challenges that are confronting the country at the moment. And as we have said, that we are supporting the calls by even our federation, COSATU, that the grant should be made permanent and should be phased in by government to address the issues of the economic crisis and the crisis of social reproduction that's affecting workers and the working class in the main in this country.
Lwazi, thank you for talking to us. Lwazi Nkolonzi is the spokesperson for Nehawu, talking about calls to transition into a basic income grant for South Africa. Discussion on that, no doubt, will continue.